The printing work at Bethel in Argentina. Small beginnings. What do we know about the printing work at Bethel in Argentina? Our story begins in 1945, when there were about 320 publishers in Argentina. That year, Brother Nathan Noe visited the country for the first time and announced that the Informant, now our Kingdom Ministry, would be printed in Argentina monthly. According to a report published in the Watchtower magazine, the first copies came off a small mimeograph machine at Bethel in March 1945. However, this manual method to make copies not always had the required quality. For that reason, in time and for the purpose of improving the quality, the services of a commercial printing firm from outside were required. Several years would elapse before printing was done at Bethel. Typographic printing. The year is now 1956. At the time, permission from the Society had been obtained to buy a small typographic press, brand name Jehovah, and a paper cutter. The Informant and other pieces of literature started to be printed, but this was not achieved without difficulties. Among the brothers who used that equipment were Charles Eisenhower and Jimmy Adamson. They worked at their offices during the day and at night did the printing work until 2 or 3 in the morning. It was impossible for them to keep up with the work. It was reported that sometimes they went to bed exhausted after having fought with the press all day. In 1958, Eldon Dean arrived in Argentina. He had been assigned to work in the printery. Recalling that time, he spoke about the physical effort needed to operate an old manual paper cutter, which they nicknamed Big Bertha. Brother Gordon Camerud also worked in the printery. As we can see, many of the printers were missionaries who had to learn the job at Bethel. The press kept them very busy. At the time, Miguel Puchetti, press and printery overseer, was also invited to work there. Jehovah's work was increasing, and it was challenging to keep up to date. This meant that they led very busy lives, and as a result, it was extremely difficult to get bored. By 1966, a bigger flat typographic press, brand name Athena Nebbiolo, had been bought. Among those who worked there, we can mention brothers Córdoba, Venderot, and Tomás Cardos. In 1958, we printed about 5,000 copies of the Kingdom Ministry, but by 1970, we made 25,000 copies for Argentina and 20,000 for Bolivia, Chile, Paraguay, and Uruguay, besides different forms, invitations, and letters. And the branch was enlarged. The old building was demolished and a larger one was built on the same property. Then others were added in adjacent plots of land. Eventually, the 3 buildings were connected, thus forming one single complex. In 1974, Frederick Franz, then vice president of the society, gave the dedication talk. Offset printing arrives. Little by little, the old typographic presses were replaced by new offset presses that required a photomechanical process to make the plates. In addition, in 1974, the governing body decided that the Watchtower and Awake should be printed in Argentina.
For about a year now, we have been talking about how to be able to print magazines here in Argentina.
Ya hace un año estamos hablando acerca de la posibilidad o cómo imprimir las revistas aquí en el país.
So not too long ago, we bought a large building right next door to our present branch home in Buenos Aires.
No hace mucho compramos un edificio grande cerca, al lado de los edificios actuales en Buenos Aires.
The people who had a lease on it up until January the 1st decided now to move out.
La gente que tenía el edificio alquilado decidieron salir el 1 de enero.
So now we're going to enlarge our printing department in this new building.
Así nosotros vamos a hacer más grande la imprenta en este nuevo edificio.
And if it be Jehovah's will, we hope within the next week or so to make arrangements to buy a rotary press to print the Watchtower and Awake magazine here in Argentina.
Si es la voluntad de Jehová, dentro de 1 o 2 semanas esperamos comprar una prensa rotativa para imprimir las revistas aquí en Argentina.
This presented quite a challenge. All the printing equipment would have to be obtained. A rotary offset press was imported from France, a paper cutter from Germany, and a stitcher from the United States. All were gifts. The press room workers, however, soon learned that it was one thing to have the presses, but quite another to operate them. Although many difficulties had to be overcome, great was their joy when the Watchtower of April 15, 1975, rolled off the first web offset press ever to be used by the Watchtower Society anywhere in the world. This was a milestone in the history of the printing done by Jehovah's Witnesses. The Dark Clouds of Ban. Sadly, in September 1976, after a military revolution and the establishment of a military government, the preaching work of Jehovah's Witnesses was banned, and the Society's printing facilities and offices were closed. However, Jehovah cleared up the way to provide his people with spiritual food. How did he achieve this? Although the printery on Fitzroy Street was closed, printing operations continued underground at other locations. In the province of Mendoza, for example, brothers Pedro Massa and Heriberto Dip printed The Informant on a mimeograph machine installed in an attic. Also, in the provinces of Buenos Aires, Santa Fe, and Córdoba, the magazine pages were printed and then dispatched to different places to have them assembled. When the printed sheets arrived, assigned brothers placed them on a large table and arranged them in numerical order. Then, the pages were collated, stapled, and placed in boxes. At first, the congregations received only one magazine per study group, but later on, the amount was increased to one per publisher. One of the underground printeries operated in the attic of a house just 2 blocks from the presidential offices. A full-color offset rotary press. Before the ban was over, our brothers secretly returned to the printery to resume their activities. Finally, the ban was lifted on December 29, 1980, and on March 8, 1984, the Jehovah's Witnesses were legally recognized by the government under the name Asociación de los Testigos de Jehová. The conditions were ideal to reprint magazines at Bethel's printing plant. Work began once again and big efforts were made to improve printing quality. We also started to print magazines for Chile. As the world became more picture-oriented, the Society considered printing the Watchtower and Awake in full color. The objective was to make our magazines as attractive as possible and, at the same time, economical. With that idea in mind, the Watchtower Society sent a 4-color web offset Harris press from their printing plant in Wallkill, New York, to the Argentina branch. The press had to be disassembled, packed, and shipped. This precious cargo arrived in Buenos Aires on October 10, 1989. Once here, it had to be reassembled. Several experienced brothers from world headquarters traveled to Argentina to supervise the work. Besides, they trained local brothers to operate the press. In 1990, the first full-color magazines rolled off the press. Jehovah's blessing on this project became immediately evident. This greatly increased magazine placement. To illustrate, in 1991, 1 year after full-color printing began, magazine placements in Argentina increased by nearly 1 million. Nowadays, about 2.5 million magazines are printed on average for Argentina and Uruguay. Many decades have gone by since the printer in Argentina started to operate. With Jehovah's blessing, we have printed millions of publications. We enthusiastically work in our different assignments to God's glory, and we heartily thank Him for the privilege of having a share in this teaching activity that will extend earth-wide under Christ's millennial kingdom.